What up, what up? Okay, I've been using this charger here, guys. I think I'm going to delete that other video. I mean, for a lot of reasons, there's just not enough information. I was kind of fighting my memory with the camera and things, so I wasn't able to put enough information. But it's just not feasible for a lot of people as well for purchasing a 200 amp charger. These things are about 300 bucks today, and that's the cost of two batteries. So I mean, if you were able to salvage two batteries, then it would definitely be worthwhile. So it would pay for itself, you know. On the third battery, you'd be ahead. So I tried it as an experiment with this solid state Shoemaker battery charger. It's a 103050. The problem with this, and I want to say, because there's a lot of confusion on this particular subject, and I want to say you probably need an older charger, I think, is the problem. And this one is older here as well. I'm gonna guess probably 15 years old. It's, you know, made in the USA, as you can see there, so that kind of tells you how old it is, because nothing's made here anymore. But I want to say just the safety features, and that's why you can't use one of the smart chargers today to do that. What happens even with this age of a charger, there's what's called a thermal sensor inside, and that's why it's sitting on these ice packs. I flipped it to the start mode here, which is where it would give you the 50 amp boost. It's like if you were trying to jump your car, basically, like a boost. But what happens is it will kick off after about 30 seconds or so. And it's because that thermal sensor starts heating up because it's putting out so much amperage, and it kicks it off. So even the newer transformer type, I want to say, are probably going to be just like this. They have what you call a duty cycle, just like a welder, if you know anything about welding. If you buy a cheaper type of a welder, they have a duty cycle where it'll allow you to weld for like 2 minutes, and then you're stuck. You got to kind of let it cool off. So that's what these newer transformer type battery chargers are built like, a lot like a welder, and some of them even state on there the duty cycle. So I had this thing charging all day, like on the 10 amp, it'll run continuously. But when I try to hit it with that 50 amps, all of them were bubbling after maybe an hour of messing with it on and off with the 10 and hitting it with the 50. But this second cell right here from the left, you can see it's not bubbling. Now there are a couple little baby bubbles in there. I had it on a trickle charge all night. I didn't really want to trust it. So it read about 11, what was it? About 11 and a half, let's just say, volts this morning, being on the trickle all night. Now while I was on the charger last night, and I stayed up really late, and that's why the ice packs are underneath that charger, I was up till midnight, 1 in the morning, something like that, because I wanted the temperature to drop, ambient temperature, and just get that charger as cold as it could be. And I put ice packs and a fan on it, and trying to keep that thermal sensor from tripping. And I was getting probably a minute, maybe a minute and a half sometimes, of that 50 amp boost. So this is all just trial and error. I want to try to save you guys some money from having to buy a new battery. So we're going to go a different route, because I'm curious if this works as well. There's a lot of information where you can dump this acid out, which only makes sense to me because you've got plates inside of a battery that make up a battery, and it just builds up sulfur in between the plates. So we've got to get that crystallization off the plates, which is the bottom line why it won't take a charge. And this is the result. You get a dead cell. So if you can get all of your cells to bubble for 15 minutes from my research, then you're probably good to go. And mine were all bubbling yesterday, but I couldn't get it to that 15-minute mark. And then it just kind of went sour after that. As you can see now, it's not really bubbling at all. And that was the same result last night. But I was reading, if I had just taken it off the charger, it was like 14 volts. So I thought we were gaining on it. Things were looking good, but in the back of my mind, I was still thinking that this center cell here was still going to be the issue, because I never did really get it to bubble. So we're going to dump all this stuff out into a tote. You want to use safety glasses and gloves and take extreme cautions, because this is acid, guys. So be extremely cautious, and just a little disclaimer there. Don't want anybody to get hurt doing this as well. So I'm just going to pause this, and we'll get back to this later and kind of keep you guys updated on this. This may even be a couple part series, because we got to charge it back up as well. But the process, what we're going to do is baking soda. And I did see one guy use baking soda to get everything cleaned out of it. Basically, baking soda is very alkaline, as you know, and what that'll do is neutralize this acid. So once I get it into the tote, I will pour some baking soda in there. It'll start fizzing up and bubbling and going crazy, and what that's doing is neutralizing it so we can dispose of it. We don't want to pour this acid right into Mother Earth or anything like that with it in the state that it is, for sure. So we want to neutralize this acid so it doesn't hurt me, others, or the environment or anything. So that'll be the process, and then I'll mix up some 1 gallon to, let me think here, it's 10 ounces of baking soda, and we'll mix up a little concoction in the jug, shake that up, and once this is empty, we'll fill this up with the baking soda. And people say you can use your garden hose, but I just can't see that that is good. So we're just going to use all distilled water. People say it doesn't matter when you're cleaning it out. When you fill it back up, you're supposed to use the distilled water for sure. But for a few bucks extra for a few extra gallons of distilled water, I don't know why people even bother. Why take the chance? It just doesn't, common sense tells me that's not a good move. So I'm going to do this with all distilled water. We're going to neutralize it, get all that acid out of there with distilled water and baking soda solution. I may even make up a couple batches, and once it's all cleaned out, we'll rinse it with another gallon of just plain distilled water and get it all out. And then we're going to do about 12 ounces or more of the Epsom salt. And once again, we need to dilute that, so I would recommend probably heating it up on the stove, or at least hot water, and being patient, making all that stuff dissolve into the warm water, which I guess you'd have to microwave it or something to warm it up, because we don't want to use the tap water. So you're going to have to get that distilled water warmed up somehow, throw it on the stove, probably be just as easy. Now I've seen people use 4 pounds of Epsom salt, and this is down to about 12 ounces. So I think I'm just going to kind of go maybe somewhere in between, because I don't think more is going to hurt it. So we could probably use a pound or two. It probably won't matter, and that's probably somewhere where I'm going to put my mixture, probably somewhere around a pound or two, kind of meet different people's opinions on this to their ratio on what they whipped up on ratios to distilled water and Epsom salt. And the process, from what I have researched and seen, what we're going to want to do after we get it filled back up with the Epsom salt, once it's all completely neutralized and cleaned out, we're going to dump all this crud and crap out of here, and I'll take some clips of what it looks like once I get it all dumped out. It's going to be pretty nasty in there. But the other method, to me, common sense tells me once again, if we zap it with the 200 amps and we were to have an old charger, if that be the method, I don't know, but I think this thermal sensor is really creating a lot of the problems. See that center cell, it's just not bubbling. I'll just leave it there so we can keep an eye on it. But to me, if we were to say buy an older charger off eBay, and if that indeed be the method, if it doesn't do like a self cycle or duty cycle, where it kicks on, kicks off, kicks on, kicks off with the 15-minute interval as stated in the previous video, the cycle, whether it does that or not with an older one, I just can't see it fixing the battery for maybe a year or two, few years at the most, from what my research has been and what I stated on the other video as well. You should probably do it every few years. But really what we're doing with the 200 amp zap, with hitting it with that much amperage, it's breaking that sulfate apart in there on the cells. Well, where's it going? It's just falling to the bottom of the battery. It's not coming out of the battery. So I think we can do this process, clean it all out. And another option, if you can go to the auto parts and just buy acid and redo it the way that it is as well. But I'm curious if the Epsom salt trick is going to work. It's basically just acting as a conductor to get some conduction in between the plates, which is what we charge and make how a battery works. So that being said, this is just kind of an experiment to see if it actually is going to work. Now, once we do the Epsom salt solution and get it refilled, there's a process. What we need to go through is kind of put a load on it, and we'll bring it down to 11 and a half volts. You could put it back in your car and just leave your headlights on. You could just wire up a test light or something to it, but you want a pretty decent amount of load on it, something 10, 15, 20 amps, something that's going to deplete the battery fairly quickly, like your headlights. Or I guess today with the LED lights, that's not really a great example, but you could turn your fan on, your radio, what have you. Just put a decent load on it, or an old incandescent light bulb or something like that plugged into a 500 watt inverter or something. Just put a decent load on it to deplete it fairly quickly. So aim for, 15-20 amps or something to deplete the battery back down to around 11 volts, and then we're going to charge it back up. And as we charge it back up, from my research, that's when it actually cleans the plates. But once again, people get it to the state of that center cell there, which is a dead cell, it's not bubbling. As it cleans the plates, it will fall to the bottom once again with the other theory, right? And I haven't seen anybody dump it out and start over after they're clean, because now you still have that crud in the bottom of the battery. So I don't know, like I tend to do, I go against the grain and use common sense, and common sense just doesn't seem to be very common anymore. So that's why we're going to document this and see if my way works, and then we'll do some updates on it during the van build. This is for the truck, which just sets all the time, unfortunately, and doesn't get used a whole lot. So that's really what hurts batteries, when they just set and don't get used. So we're going to see what happens, and then in a long-term effect, I'll kind of do some updates maybe throughout the van build and see where we're at on all this. So curiosity killed the cat, and we're trying to save you $1. If it's messes up the battery, it messes up the battery. It's shot already anyway. So we'll see if we can save me the cost of another battery, and see if we can save people lots of money on buying batteries in the future. And that's what this is all about, educating the community and trying to save everybody $1, because they're getting harder to come by and they're becoming worth less every day. So we'll catch up with you guys here in a second. Okay, look at all this that was inside that battery. This is just nasty. And I can see some chunks here and there. Just dumped it in a big tote to stay safe. I mean, this acid isn't going to just like eat your skin off immediately, guys. I mean, if you get some on you, just wash your hands quickly. So, it's something to be cautious of for sure, but you don't have to be afraid of it. I mean, being afraid is a good thing a lot of times. So what I have here shaken up in my gallon jug here of distilled water, about 10 ounces, and I did not go crazy with the scale or anything. I'm just trying to keep this kind of simple. See, you see there, it's bubbling with what's on top. This is neutralizing it. Just going to pour this in each cell. Just fill them up about halfway. I've got about a half a gallon mixed up here. See, that one's going good. We've probably got a little bit more in that one. So what I did was about a quarter of a box of baking soda, 1 pound box. Just trying to make it simple because people don't have scales either. So we're kind of aiming for around 10 ounces a gallon. I had a half a gallon here that it was used from yesterday when I was topping them off, trying to get this thing charged up. So I just dumped about a quarter of a box in there. Oh, there we go. That one's getting crazy, getting jiggy, and this is why you need, eye protection and gloves, unlike myself right now. But woo, look at that, guys. I'm just being real cautious, keeping away from it. dumping it in there and small amounts and jumping back when it starts fizzing. Like I say, it's not going to kill you immediately if it gets on you. So that's why I myself am not wearing gloves at the moment. There it goes. And that's that cell that wasn't working. So she gave a good little gurgle there. And hopefully it got the stuff out of the sulfur that we want to get out. Okay, so I'm going to put the caps back on this after it stops fizzing here. And then I'm just going to set it on the ground and kind of roll it around. And you don't have to be too careful with it. We don't drop it from, waist height, but I'm going to set it on the ground and kind of just flip it around a little here or there and just kind of get things mixed up in there. And then we're going to drain it again in here, but not before I put some baking soda in this here to neutralize this, because we don't want to just dump all that baking soda in from the battery, trying to hold the battery and dumping it right into raw acid here. So I'll get another solution just mixed up with tap water and baking soda and kind of ease it into this and neutralize all this before I dump the rest in there. So see you in a minute. We're going through the process here, and then once I get it all cleaned out, I'm going to flush it again with another gallon of distilled water, get it completely cleaned out, and then I'm going to put it on the charge, and we'll try to get it charged back up, and we'll keep you updated in future videos. Okay, just a quick shot. I got this all cleaned out, and we're going to dump the other one in there, and I'll show you what that one's going to look like once we put that baking soda in there and see if we can get some more of that filth out of there. Okay, this is the baking soda solution. And I don't know if you guys can see those little specks there in the lighter area, but that's what we're trying to get out, and it's working. There's definite crud in here, so I'm going to probably repeat that. I need to go get some more distilled water. Wasn't planning on doing this video, but it looks like it's probably going to be a couple parts anyway. And just wanted to show, after dumping, it still has about 10.25 volts here, completely empty. We had about 11.5, like I said earlier, when I took it off the charge this morning. So I'm going to repeat this process and get it really cleaned out, and we'll have a second part on getting the Epsom salt solution back into the battery and the charging process. So we'll get this uploaded. If you guys have been wondering where I've been the last couple days, I got a little frost here, and long story short, I've been harvesting like a madman, and I put a tweet out. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you wouldn't know that. I'm at XRPDT. So I put notices and things like that if something comes up, but I try to upload something every day, but we got things going on around the home front as well. So this battery situation was just kind of as I was picking stuff out the garden like a madman. Yesterday I kept messing with that charger, and we just couldn't break that dead cell loose. And it very well may happen if we had the 200 amp charger, but I got to looking at it, I'm like, well, that's $300 for a charger, which in my situation it'd be great, because I've got half a dozen registered vehicles, so always needing a battery for something, and side by sides and other things as well. But So, I mean, it would easily pay for itself, but I just want to experiment with this and see if we could get away without paying the $300 for the charger as well. So we will keep you posted on how this goes. Hopefully we can do it all with just a cheaper charger, something that everybody can afford, $50 or something, and maybe still make this work. I've been curious for a lot of years how this Epsom salt solution actually works, and kind of dug into it over the last couple days since I didn't make any videos, and got a lot of research in on it. And I guess the main thing is, once it's done, a lot of people don't think it works, but what happens is it cleans the plates as you deplete it and recharge it. You don't want to go any lower than 11 volts from my research, and then charge it back up. And as it's charging, the solution takes the sulfate off the cells in there, the plates. So hopefully this works. We're going to give it a try, and but I'm just going to take a few extra steps, and like doing the baking soda, which a lot of people don't even do that. They use tap water, which I'm not going to do that. So we're just going to do it the best way that common sense tells us to do it, and find out our results from there. So we'll keep you posted on this. I'll probably have a part 2 coming up real soon, and we will fill you in on what happens with this, and longevity as well. That's the other thing. Nobody ever gives you any reports on how long the battery actually works after you do these things. And it looks good on a voltmeter, but what happens when you put a load on it? You put a load on batteries, things tend to work a little differently. So all these things we're going to share with you. And if you know me from Twitter, I'm pretty much a straight shooter as it gets. I call it as I see it. So if it's all BS, we're going to find out if it's BS. If we can save a buck by doing it, we're going to share it with you and give you the real deal. So we'll get back on the van here shortly, guys, but I kind of figured, the van has a battery as well. So we hit that freeze the other night, and my truck wouldn't start. So figured it would be no better time than to kind of play around with this. And I kind of needed a break from the van anyway, to be honest. I'm not as young as I used to be, and jumping in and out of the van, in and out of the van, in and out of the van. So it's kind of hard on this old boy. So we will see you soon on the next one. This is the Van Life Biker, and I'm out.